Hi, and welcome to Changemakers with Eleanor, the podcast where we dive into the lives and lessons of those who are making a difference. I'm your host, Eleanor Baggaley, and in each episode we bring you inspiring stories from leaders, coaches, and people who are not just dreaming of change, but making it happen. Whether they're penning their first book, working in their community, or leading a revolution in their industry, you'll get a first-hand look at how they're shaping the world. If you're looking to leave a mark or simply love a good story about modern-day heroes, you've come to the right place. Here, we're all about changing the world, whether that's one person's world or the world in general. So grab your notebook or just a comfortable seat and let's explore these fascinating journeys together. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to ensure you never miss an episode. Let's go change the world together. Hi, so in this episode I am delighted to welcome Baiba to the show. So Baiba, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, wonderful. So nice to meet you, Eleanor, and everybody who's listening. My name is Baiba, and on a high level, I've been obsessed with chasing my purpose. And through that journey, and what it means chasing my purpose is really looking to design work in a way that is fulfilling and energy giving. So I'm mostly looking forward to what I do versus crossing off, Monday through Friday and only living for the weekends. So as a part of that journey, I started my own podcast. It's called Career In Technicolor, that is devoted to allowing others to listen to stories of other people, of how they come to doing what they're doing right now, and also tools, that you can pick and choose, right? Take what resonates with you to apply to your own journey and kind of find your own purpose and design work that is fulfilling for you, because we're also unique, we're also different. And I spent over 15 years in corporate and specifically in recruiting. So I love interviewing, and I've interviewed and worked with thousands of people looking for a change, looking for a new role. So that's kind of how the podcast came through, in a very selfish kind of way. And there's a second part of what I do is also I teach somatic movements to help release stress and tension from the body and increase energy. And that kind of came through my own purpose chasing journey. And kind of like that was one part of my unique purpose puzzle. And then I teach others because after 40, I realized that walking was no longer enough. So, and I'm in North Carolina, so I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, on the East Coast of USA.
I know, and I'm so excited that you're out there, so close to one of my friends. So when you had your corporate job, did you enjoy that? Did you feel that you had purpose in that, or was it that job that made you look to finding a bigger purpose in life?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it was a little bit of both. I find that life is not black and white, and it's not, absolute. There were times, where it really worked for me. And there were things, and times where it didn't work for me. And, over the years, what I found that I actually was struggling with my own energy level. So this is kind of where it all comes together. The full picture of kind of doing these things is, there were things that did not work. And I wanted to understand what's not working. Why am I feeling drained and tired? Why don't I have energy for my own life, for seeing friends or doing things after work, or even kind of more capacity to spend time with my son that was younger at the time. A lot of times I just felt so fatigued and exhausted that I would be impatient. I was going through the motions. Physically you're there, but then you don't feel like you're there really emotionally. And, in other ways that little kids need you to be. So I was feeling that I was losing my own kind of over the years spark for life. And so that's why I said that a lot of these things came from a very, very kind of real lived experience, and also from my own journey.
I was going to say a lot of like personal discovery along the way that's then impacted kind of the different things that you do, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely, I call myself a career alchemist because it is not a linear process. And, everything that I share is a very integrated and lived experience.
So obviously the podcast is called Changemakers, and I guess you've kind of given it a little bit of a hint as to how you are a change maker. Is there anything else that we've not kind of touched on yet, that how you are a change maker in what you do? How do you see yourself as a change maker?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question, and thank you for being able to expand on it. I think the biggest change really that I invite you, anybody listening, to do is really coming home on that journey more and more to yourself. Because I think the biggest change that we can impact in the world is coming from our own truth, being integrated in knowing who we are, and then it all flows out, right? Then I spent years reading books, right, looking at everybody else's beliefs, right? There's so much noise out there, right? And everybody else has their own truth, and that can leave us kind of, at least it left me kind of very much in my head, but not necessarily living in my own truth. So it's been a journey of coming home to me. And so I think the biggest change I can facilitate, or I can invite anybody to do, is come back to your own heart and soul. And then the change will flow naturally, right? That's the biggest impact and change we can make also on the world.
What are the biggest challenges you face in doing what you're doing and helping others to go through that journey?
I mean, life can be challenging, right? The biggest challenges, sometimes probably overthinking it. I think one of the biggest challenges for myself, it outflows. I think everything outflows also to others, is that you're trying to force things. And I have really leaned into more leaning back,
Okay.
so not forcing. And I think it's also understanding my own nature. I think we try to do things because we have these concepts and ideas about who we are that are not necessarily true. And we overfunction in the world and show up in the world wearing different masks. And some of these things start to drain us. So
Yeah, absolutely.
probably has been one of the biggest challenges also coming home to myself. And I'm still in the process. I think, at least my experience has been that I'm not 100% there, right? So embracing kind of the full truth, the full authenticity, and the spectrum of this journey.
Do you think any of us get to 100% of who we are? Because do you think that we stay as being that same person that we're always trying to find our true self for? Or do you think that can change over time? So it's always going to be a journey to get back to who that new true self is as you grow and develop and change over time?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. I think it's layered. I think our essence is there, but my experience was that in childhood, my essence wasn't really celebrated or accepted. So I had to, as children, right, we need to adjust to survive. We need to adapt different kind of behaviors. And I grew up with a narcissistic father. So there was a lot of adaptation that happened that, kind of it was systematically, right, that were split from my own nature. So for me, it's been a journey. Yeah. And I think for a lot of us, right, because we think about like a child, how much nurturing, how much emotional attunement, and how much emotional actually being there for the child that needs to happen for the child to be safe in their own spirit, be safe in their own nature, and how much conditioning happens because there's so many grown-ups around us who have not accepted their own nature.
And that has
So
such a knock-on impact then if the adults around you aren't accepting of who they are and understanding of who they are, then that's bound to have a knock-on impact on
of course.
the children.
Yeah, of course. And then all this, imposing of their own ideas and needs, right, on the children that happens of, okay, I need you to be successful. You should be doing this and that. And we systematically kind of take out, it doesn't even have to be emotionally unstable or emotionally damaging parents, right? But, there's a lot of damage that can happen, whether it's in your young years or teenager years. This world sometimes can be a pretty rough place. So it's kind of, I think everybody, that's why it is so individual, and that's why my intention is really to share the experiences and the tools, and people take, it's not again an absolute journey or one absolute truth. And I just invite everybody to check with themselves, right, what's true for them. And it changes. But to your question about the essence and whether we change, I don't think we change at our essence and a level of our psyche. It's just how far we've navigated away from it, right? How much we can. It takes a lot of courage to live on your own terms.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, because I've always viewed it as we change as we go through our lives. But actually, I really like what you've said there about we just get closer and closer to our true essence of who we are. And we do drop the different masks of the people who we are supposed to be in the different situations. And it's kind of reminded me. So I wrote a book for teenagers called Becoming the Goat, and part of that was to try and find who you are yourself and what your identity is without all of the impact from everybody around you. And I'd never really thought about it the way that you've just said it. So that's been really interesting to kind of listen and consider how that has played out in my life and how it actually links to kind of other bits and pieces of work that I've done. I've never really thought about it in that way. So thank you. That was really good.
I love that because it's also the synchronicities that I have a teenager. So that subject is really near and dear to my heart. And I know how, even unknowingly, right, because I'm not perfect, I have damaged my own son. And even I notice still on day-to-day basis, kind of when you talk about inviting kids, right, to know their own nature, it's I know where I'm why are you always late? Not late, but why do you do this last minute? Or why can't you prepare ahead of time? So in a way, every day I can, if I'm not rested, if I'm not well-resourced, right, I can continue conditioning him out of his own nature, right? Yeah. And then he's discombobulated, but it works for him, right? It's kind of it just happens on a daily basis. And I love how, I think sometimes the less we intervene in our kids day to day and want to manage and control it, the better that they can actually hear their own nature and they don't need to walk this journey back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I picked up, you said something a little bit earlier about success. And the thing that sprang to mind is, and it relates to kind of what you're saying there and the expectations that we have of ourselves and of other people and expectations that other people have on us. And that word success, because that means so many different things to different people, doesn't it? So I'm just guessing here, but you've said about your purpose to find what drives you and what you want to get up and do in the morning and things like that. And I'm guessing to success to you is you having found what that purpose is, whereas success to others might be the being on time or the earning a certain amount of money or reaching a certain status or whatever else it is. And I think we have to be careful that we don't let, and I know I've been guilty of this before I kind of started to find myself, that we don't let the other people's expectations of success drive us back and kind of lose our essence further. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, and we do. The honest truth is that we do. We consume social media, right? We see the glossy pictures, we see like how much you should be making. So it is all impacting us and our
Mm.
psyche, and it's being fed to us, right? Our mind is being fed these messages over and over. So it takes a lot of strength. That's why I said it takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength, especially as you're younger. And I love how you're saying that everybody has their own definition of success. And that is kind of what you asked me previously, like what changes. That is definitely something that changes, right? Because it changes based on the phase of life you're in, right?
Mm.
Many times it changes based on your age, what was success in your 20s, changes in 30s and 40s and so on.
Yeah, no, I've certainly experienced that. So yeah, this is quite reassuring for me in my life path. So thank you.
Yeah, I think
um,
we all kind of like look for these like static answers. Sometimes I get a little bit annoyed or mad at my mom. She's like, well, I read this. And, we all look for these absolute truths, right?
mm,
And the reality is that there is no absolute truth. It's your truth, like you said. And this is really what I invite people to do is always check whatever truth, whatever affirmation or belief somebody says with full conviction, come back to your own essence and check whether it is your truth. Yeah.
that's really important. I like that. I think that's my take home from message from today. I think.
I love
um,
that.
What's your plans for the future with this? Where do you see kind of the work that you do, either within kind of the purpose-led stuff or the somatic movement and things like that? Where do you see the future of it? Have you got kind of big plans, developments, certain people who you think need this more than others, or where do you see it going?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I don't have like a static set picture. My vision is that I love interviewing people, so I want to keep doing the podcast, and there's like certain fulfillment that comes, and energy that comes from that for me selfishly. And I hope that it obviously gets, I think when we do these selfish things that light us up, then that
Mm.
energy reverberates, like it gets, that is the change, that is the impact, that sparkle that we can then the magic dust we can sprinkle on the world. And the second part is definitely the movement. Who needs it? I would say most likely anybody over 40. But I love the movement because it's much deeper than that, because Qigong is an energy management system. So it's not just a physical, exercise that will exhaust you. It actually taps into the force and the energies of nature. And we're so overstimulated, even myself, right? I've spent years working behind the computer, even in the podcast and everything. We sit so much. And I think one of the things that's not talked enough about, that sitting is a huge inflammatory contributor. And a lot of this is my hot take, and uh, it's not medical advice, but a lot of the anxiety feelings, like I went years feeling stressed, anxious, and a lot of it comes from the imbalanced energies. We're so much in our head, and we're not balancing our energetics, with the body. We were designed to move. We were not designed to be living in our head. So it's creating a lot of heat, a lot of like this heady energy. And so I know that I will take Qigong and Tai Chi to 70s, 80s, however long I will live. And I teach it at some institutions, so organizations, and I want to grow it. Definitely I want to grow both aspects and teach it to, and invite people who want to play with me, through those movements, and also through the podcast, so kind of inviting people in my world, and then we'll see where it leads. What I found is that the most beautiful and magnificent things that were actually a fit for me, for my own soul, didn't come to me through knowing or through a static vision, like imagining and then chanting affirmations. Like I came across the ocean. I'm originally from Latvia, so I literally moved in when I was 19, 20 years old without a lot of support, across the ocean. I moved I was born in Soviet Union, completely different system, so it came and made a life for me. And I didn't have a vision board of it. Like, it happened. It was just something that was planted in my soul. And like some other miraculous experiences that have happened, um, have not been from knowing exactly what it will look like. So I'm open to the alchemy of life.
I like that. I like that. Not really having a destination, but just enjoying the journey as you go, and making small hops on the islands as you go through.
Yes, definitely.
So, where can people find more about kind of what it is that you do, and if they're interested in kind of getting more information about the things that you've talked about?
Oh, thank you for the question. Yes, come play with me. If you're more interested in the career and finding your purpose type of aspects and conversations, I will say that those conversations are also deeper, soulful conversations, that happen. And I do some solo episodes as well. Come listen on Career in Technicolor Podcast. And you can come and do the movements with me. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and any of the social media platforms at Reignite Your Vitality.
Okay, so we'll make sure that we get those shared anyway. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today before we start to wrap up?
My invitation to you, and this has been a journey for myself, is to really kind of relax. I think relaxation is the baseline of where we can make the most change. When our bodies and our nervous system is more relaxed, our brain works better, our immune system works better. So this is also why I love the somatic movements that I teach. It's just because I think this world conditions us to go, to force, right? To make it happen. And at some point of time, it can feel exhausting. So if you want more nurturing kind of energy, if you actually want to connect and impact more change, I want to give you the permission slip to relax and rest more and take care of yourself more.
I will take that permission. For anybody that hasn't heard of somatic movement before, what is it? Can you give us a bit of a whistle-stop tour around what somatic movement is?
Yeah, so the type of somatic movement that I teach is Qigong and Tai Chi that come from the ancient China and incorporate the elements of traditional Chinese medicine. There are other type of somatic movements. Somatic means essentially that you're using your body. So what Qigong teaches is that any kind of ailments or any kind of symptoms or negative symptoms that we are experiencing, including overthinking, including ruminating thoughts, including not being able to sleep at night, or have a restful sleep, stress, that it originates from blocked and stagnant energy in our body. And somatic, if you think about it, in nature, what do animals do if they encounter stressful situations? If they survive, because one of their reactions is freeze reaction, right? And sometimes the animal, if it's being chased by a predatory animal, will end up surviving because they pretend to be dead, essentially, when they go in that freeze reaction. And what the animal in nature does is after the incident, they shake, they use their body to get the stress out. But what do? We look around, let's say we are in a meeting or we're in a work environment or, on a Zoom, right? We have to hold ourselves together. But every day, at least my experience has been that you go through stresses and they accumulate over time. And it gets more and more and more lodged in your shoulders, right? When your shoulders start to get tight and up to
Tell
your
me about
ear
it.
or your back, and we are not taught. This is something I wish, and I teach my son, is how we can actually, we go through grief, we go through sadness, we go through loss, right? We go through full experience of life. And it's beautiful to have the somatic movements. Essentially, it's how to get that out of your body. how to get that stress, that tension, that pressure released. So, because you can't really have energy, you can't really have the joy and happiness that you want if your body is all full of the tension and the pressure.
Yeah, no, that sounds perfect. I feel like I need that in my life every day.
Me too. That's why I'm like, I found the forcing function.
I guess, I mean, I always say there's just not enough time in the day, and people who know me know that I do fill my time. I do a lot of different things. As I briefly said to you at the beginning, kind of all the charity work that I do and work and with the children and everything. It is hard, but I guess ultimately it's about what you prioritize, isn't it? And as you said, it's permission to prioritize yourself, to have that relaxation time, to look after yourself, to actually find your true self and be the true you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get grim, but like, I mean, puts it in perspective. I know we all do this. I've done it for years too, and I still have to make myself to move and work out, right? But the perspective is I've been in phases in my life where I was struggling with the energy level, like with pretty severe fatigue. And when you don't have your health, none of those things matter because you can't show up for any of them.
Oh, well,
So that
I had long COVID, and I was really hit with fatigue with that. So I totally hear what you're saying there, because everything was just impossible, and it was awful, heartbreaking, frustrating. So
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
So I'm learning to prioritize the movement and health because totally I get it. I get into this, oh, my to-do list is so long, we all get into, and then the movement, it's last on the list. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm with you.
guilty, absolutely guilty of that. So yeah, I'm gonna channel you, Baiba, in my day-to-day life. I think to try and make time for a little bit more movement. So before we finish for this episode, can you share a fun or interesting fact about yourself that people might be surprised about?
Yeah, it's funny because you told me this question will be coming before we started recording. I always struggle with these questions because sometimes I'm too serious and I'm so like mission or purpose oriented, and I spend so much time like learning and doing these things that are related to my podcast and the purpose finding journey. The fun, that is actually one of the things that I'm working on myself, is having more fun and having more play. But the fun fact, well, one of the fun facts is I love to dance. Like I love kind of hip hop kind of dancing. I also love Spanish style of dancing. So yes, I like to dance. So I'm sure I'll think of something better as soon as we're done recording.
That's always the case, isn't it? Yeah, I'm always the same when people ask me that question. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sure I've got loads of fun facts that I can share, and just none of them ever come to mind when I'm trying to think of one. And I do feel a little bit guilty when I ask guests that, but it's always quite interesting to see where people go, because some people have shared things that I was like, oh wow, I would never have put you down for that. So yeah, no, it is. My guilt subsides.
And I don't know if it's fun, but I love cakes and pastries. I mean, that is fun for me.
Oh,
like
well, yeah.
I guess that's my European upbringing, is that like I can eat cake for breakfast. A good cake.
You'd get on well with my youngest little girl. She decides it's her birthday kind of every other day, and demands to have cake for breakfast on some of those days. So yes, I'm sure you'd get on very well. So I just want to say thank you so much, Baiba, for joining for this episode. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk through everything that we've discussed, and I think I'm certainly going to take away that permission to relax and actually move more and be more intentional about who I am and what my life is about. So thank you. It's been really kind of enlightening and very kind of educational as well. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
It was so nice to meet you, Eleanor. And yeah, it's sometimes the change, right? The most profound change, it's hard to put in words, but kind of that resonance, right? Like there's something that you can leave people with is like the most satisfying part. That's when you asked about the change. I'm like, well, it's so hard to put it in a couple of sentences how I changed the world. Like, I don't know. But thank you so much for that. I felt it too. So.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Changemakers with Eleanor. I hope you're leaving as inspired as I am. If today's story has sparked something in you, remember it's never too late to start making a difference. Whether it's writing that book you've always dreamed of, stepping up in your community, or starting that campaign you're passionate about. If you enjoyed our time together, please consider giving us a rating and review on your favourite podcast platform and share this episode with someone who could use a little inspiration. Your support helps us to reach more changemakers just like you. Join me, Eleanor, in the next episode for another deep dive into the stories of those who dare to dream big. Until then, be your greatest. See you next time.